The rain started falling just as the sun was beginning to set, turning the quiet neighborhood into a gray blur of dripping roofs and empty streets. I remember standing on my porch that evening, holding a warm mug of coffee, watching the storm roll in like a heavy curtain across the sky. It had been one of those long, silent days where the world felt distant and lonely. The kind of day when you start wondering how life became so quiet. And then, out of nowhere, she appeared at the edge of the driveway, soaked, tired, and looking like she had been running from something far heavier than the rain. If you believe that a single act of kindness can change someone's entire life, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Midnight Tales. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the smallest decisions become the most important moments of our lives. She stood there hesitating under the pouring rain, her arms wrapped around herself as if she were trying to hold together the pieces of a long, painful day. Her name, I would later learn, was Arya. But in that moment she was simply a stranger on my porch, her eyes carrying a quiet exhaustion that words couldn't explain. The rain had soaked through her clothes, her hair clung to her face, and there was something fragile in the way she looked at the ground instead of at me. When she finally lifted her head, there was a softness in her expression that felt both hopeful and afraid at the same time. The question she asked was simple, but the way she said it carried the weight of everything she had been through. She said she just needed somewhere to sleep for the night. Just one night, she explained quietly, as if she didn't want to disturb the calm of the world around us. She said she had nowhere else to go. No friends nearby, no family who would answer her calls. The rain kept falling harder as she stood there waiting, and in that moment the world felt strangely quiet, like it was waiting for my answer too. I had lived alone for years in that small house on Maplewood Street. My days were predictable: morning coffee, work, quiet evenings, the occasional walk through the park. Life had become steady but empty in a way I had stopped noticing. Yet as I looked at the stranger standing on my porch, something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the tired honesty in her eyes, or maybe it was the simple truth that sometimes people don't ask for help unless they truly need it. So I stepped aside and told her she could come in. The warmth of the house seemed to wrap around her the moment she crossed the doorway. I handed her a towel and made a pot of tea while she sat quietly at the kitchen table. For a long time we didn't say much. The rain tapped against the windows like a steady rhythm, and the room filled with the comforting smell of chamomile. Slowly, the tension in her shoulders began to ease. Over the next hour, bits of her story came out in quiet pieces. Arya had spent the last year trying to rebuild her life after leaving a difficult relationship. She had moved cities, taken whatever work she could find, and tried to start over from nothing. But sometimes life pushes people harder than they expect. That morning she had lost the small apartment she had been renting after falling behind on payments. By evening, she had nowhere left to go except the quiet streets she had wandered through until she found my porch light glowing in the rain. There was no anger in her voice as she spoke, only exhaustion. The kind that comes from fighting battles for too long without anyone standing beside you. As the night slowly approached, the rain softened into a gentle drizzle outside. I gave her the spare blanket and offered her the couch, but she insisted she didn't want to be a burden. What she didn't realize was that her presence had already changed something in the quiet rhythm of that lonely house. For the first time in years, the rooms didn't feel empty. Morning arrived with bright sunlight streaming through the windows. The storm had washed the sky clean, leaving behind a fresh warmth that filled the air. Arya stood by the kitchen window holding a cup of coffee, watching the neighborhood wake up. The way the sunlight touched her face made it look like the weight of the night before had lifted just a little. Over the next few days something unexpected happened. One night turned into another, and slowly we began helping each other in ways neither of us had planned. I helped her search for work, and she filled the quiet house with laughter and small moments of life that had been missing for years. She watered the plants on the porch, cooked simple meals, and brought an energy that made the days feel lighter. What started as a moment of kindness slowly became something deeper, two strangers finding comfort in each other's presence while trying to rebuild their lives. Sometimes life doesn't change through grand gestures. Sometimes it changes through something as simple as opening a door during a rainy evening. Months passed, and Arya eventually found a steady job at a small design studio downtown. She saved enough money to rent a small apartment nearby, but even after moving out she still visited often. The porch that once stood empty during rainy evenings became the place where we would sit together, talking about everything and nothing while the world passed quietly around us. Looking back now, it's hard to believe how one small decision created a path neither of us expected. That rainy night could have ended differently. I could have said no. I could have closed the door and returned to my quiet, lonely routine. But sometimes the universe places someone in your path for a reason. Before we reach the end of this story, if this moment touched your heart even a little, please take a second to like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Midnight Tales for more emotional stories like this. And here's a special request for you. Comment the word, kindness, below if you believe that helping someone in their darkest moment can change both lives forever. Because the truth is, that night didn't just give Arya a place to sleep. It gave both of us a second chance at feeling human again. And sometimes, the most beautiful stories don't begin with love or destiny. Sometimes they begin with rain, a quiet porch light, and a stranger asking for a place to rest.